Commentary, Part 1. Biden's Speech in Independence Hall, Philadelphia, September 1st, 2022. I wanted to examine Biden's 25-minute speech in three parts because although you can go and look and see various criticisms and examinations of his speech, most of them are very short, and no one actually goes and details the components of Biden's entire speech and breaks it down. But we're seeing Joe Biden for who he truly is, the personality that he brings to the presidency, an angry, bitter, brittle, elderly man who can't understand why anyone would oppose his administration's policies. Before we get to his Independence Hall speech at the start of September, let's examine for a moment just how the Biden administration views honesty.
Search warrant on the former president's residence in Florida. Was the president or anyone at the White House aware of that search warrant? Or has anyone at the White House or the president been briefed in the aftermath of that search warrant being executed?
No. The president was not briefed, was not aware of it. No one at the White House was given a heads up. No, that did not happen.
The White House.
Why wouldn't she have any hesitation in saying that? Because she lied. This is from the Federalist yesterday, September 6th. Special Master Order reveals Biden's direct involvement in Trump raid. NARA will provide the FBI access to the records in question as requested by the incumbent president. This request by President Biden authorized the FBI to conduct their raid. The president requests and the FBI carries out that order. The White House routinely lies because they know they will never be called on their lies. We can look at Biden's speech in terms of three parts, like the way Genesis came up with the song Domino. This track from Invisible Touch is three different songs melded into one arrangement. The first track is very instrumental, very surreal and dreamy. Then you get into the middle track, and it's very driving. We're roaming through the universe. Completely different tone. Then we get into the third portion of the song, and it's a very hopeful, happy theme. The question is, does Joe Biden's 25 minutes speaking at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, does it have the same genius, the same brilliance, the same organizational themes? Or does it just repeat the same thing over and over for 25 minutes? That's what we'll examine in all three parts of this, and I hope it makes a cohesive whole of commentary on just where we are as a nation. Joe Biden, as president, is the moral focus of our country. Whatever he's saying and thinking, I believe it's important for us to examine that clearly and completely. What happens in Washington, D.C. affects every one of us in the United States of America. What Joe Biden has done in this country since taking office, he has created an artificial supply chain shortage affecting multiple industries. Industries such as gasoline, coffee, semiconductor chips, diapers, chicken, lumber, toilet paper. At the same time, we have fentanyl coming across an open southern border, which Biden's press secretary says is not an open southern border. And yet, Joe Biden may be known for nothing more than being fentanyl Joe Biden by the end of his presidency. In Europe, the countries that signed on to Joe Biden's unnecessary war with Russia over Ukraine has created energy shortages where people cannot obtain coal or wood in order to warm themselves with the coming bitter winter. Following the leadership of Joe Biden has harmed the world and America. Here we are most of the way through 2022, and my family is living in poverty thanks to the policies of Joe Biden. But Joe Biden has identified the biggest problem this country faces, and that would be Donald Trump and people who voted for Donald Trump. And I wanted to go over his speech here, but let's take a look at how this is being reported.
This coming after his fiery speech in Philadelphia last night, President Biden calling for unity while also punching up his criticism of his predecessor and what he calls MAGA Republicans.
Now, how is it that ABC News is praising Biden's fiery primetime speech, according to their title, when ABC didn't even run the speech? It was MSNBC and CNN who carried it live. But look at the way this reporter reports on Joe Biden. Can you imagine any news anchor speaking of a Donald Trump speech in such glowing, positive terms? And I found something interesting about the optics here. C-SPAN starts this video with Biden already reaching the podium. Did something about Biden's entrance make C-SPAN want to edit the entry of Joe Biden? Let's take a look here. How did Biden actually come in? What on earth are these gongs going for? Independence Hall, Philadelphia. Let's bring some lighting up to illuminate the tone of the speech here. Oh, call out the Marines. Someone said you only bring out the Marines in the face of complete disaster. And apparently someone was thinking ahead of time with Biden, thinking his speech needed the protection of some tough-looking, stern Marines.
Please welcome the President of the United States and Dr. Jill Biden.
I guess Dr. Jill Biden is being brought in as a medical assistant or nurse to Joe Biden. It actually looks like his own personal nurse is leading him out. You notice something for the entire Biden presidency. Why is it that they always have a close-up of his podium at any speech that he's giving? It's almost as if he couldn't line up a crowd of 50 people to ever hear him speak, no matter what time or what the topic is of the speech. Why do we always have to have a tight zoom wherever Joe Biden speaks? You remember Trump had rallies where he packed stadiums full of people eager to hear what he was going to say. But here Joe Biden, with the assistance of Dr. Jill Biden, his personal nurse, oh look, there he goes. He's not sure which way the podium is. All right, just say what you were told to say, Joe. When was the last time you remember Joe Biden speaking in Pennsylvania? 10 months ago, last October, Joe Biden went to speak in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He delivered a speech about his Build Back Better plan, which just got passed in much reduced form. Canada Hub here is the only news service that I could find on YouTube that actually showed the size of the crowd that Biden spoke to last year in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Here's the crowd that actually attended Joe Biden's speech in Scranton, Pennsylvania last October. It's a crowd of 2 or 3 dozen hand-picked Democratic Party officials. Apparently, they didn't have anyone in the public who wanted to hear him speak. The people who showed up to protest Joe Biden last October far outnumbered the crowd he had. So, in keeping with that, we have Joe Biden here with a very tight close-up on him at the podium, because you don't want to show the fact that he has almost no one in attendance wanting to hear him speak.
My fellow Americans, please, if you have a seat, thank you.
How many people are in attendance? The news networks won't show us. And in fact, last year, every news network colluded to hide the size and composition of Joe Biden's crowd the last time he spoke in Pennsylvania. And of course, they didn't cover the Trump protesters outside that welcomed Biden into Scranton. Same thing here. It's a new year, and yet the news media is still controlling and sculpting the news to protect Joe Biden. They didn't do this for Donald Trump. Why do reporters and news editors and news agencies think it's their job to protect the image of Joe Biden? Because they didn't think that was their job to protect the image of Donald Trump. What's the difference?
I speak to you tonight from sacred ground in America. Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is where America made its Declaration of Independence to the world more than 2 centuries ago with an idea unique among nations. That in America, we're all created equal. This is where the United States Constitution was written and debated. This is where we set in motion the most extraordinary experiment of self-government the world has ever known. With three simple words: we the people. We the people. These two documents and the ideas they embody, equality and democracy, are the rock upon which this nation is built. They're how we became the greatest nation on earth. They're why, for more than 2 centuries, America has been a beacon to the world. But as I stand here tonight...
Uh-oh, he reached the but portion of his speech. But there's a threat to America. Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it Syria? Is it Iran? Is it North Korea? Let's listen in.
Equality and democracy are under assault. We do ourselves no favor to pretend otherwise. So tonight...
You know, those Marines feel really proud standing behind Joe Biden on this occasion, because it was a year ago that Joe Biden abandoned Marines to be blown up by suicide bombers in Afghanistan, because the Biden administration foolishly trusted the Taliban to provide security while America's diplomats were withdrawn from that country. And in retaliation to the 13 Marines blown up because of Joe Biden's stupidity last year, Joe Biden authorized a drone strike on a car full of children, which they thought was packed full of artillery shells, but it was actually water bottles. These Marines have to be thinking of their fellow Marines let down by Joe Biden last year, and now Joe Biden is going to defend our country from threats from within.
I've come to this place where it all began to speak as plainly as I can to the nation about the threats we face, about the power we have in our own hands to meet these threats, and about the incredible future that lies in front of us if only we choose it. Let's never forget.
So Biden celebrated the differences of Americans when we came together and debated the formation of our country and the creation of the U.S. Constitution at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. But in 2022, we can't celebrate dissent. We can't celebrate criticism. We can't celebrate differing views. There's only one right view, and it's Joe Biden's way.
We, the people, are the true heirs of the American experiment that began more than 2 centuries ago. We, the people, have burning inside of each of us the flame of liberty that was lit here.
Unless it's a school parent speaking out at a Virginia school board meeting, and then Joe Biden directs the FBI and the Department of Justice to start investigating these parents as potential domestic terrorists.
At Independence Hall, the flame that lit our way through abolition, the Civil War, suffrage, the Great Depression, World Wars, civil rights. That sacred flame still burns.
We recognize that with the civil rights marches of the 1960s and onwards, that Americans who protest unjust government are heroes and good people. But in Joe Biden's mind, that's only if they protest on behalf of Democratic Party causes.
Now in our time, as we build an America that is more prosperous, free and just, that is the work of my presidency, a mission I believe in with my whole soul. But first, we must be honest with each other and with ourselves. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal.
You mean like record inflation due to Biden's inflation? Do you mean the supply chain crisis caused by Joe Biden's long-headed policies towards canceling the gas and petroleum industries? Do you mean the open borders flooding our country with the illegal immigrants? Do you mean the unnecessary war that you started with the president of Russia over Ukraine? When you have more diplomats in Europe and in the United States than the rest of the world put together, and with all those diplomats you couldn't find a solution other than war with Russia? So tell us, Joe, about all these things that you created as artificial crises that did not exist before you took office.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans.
So, I'm confused here, Joe. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans may animate you, but what does that actually have to do with the domestic and international crises that you yourself created by your own policies? You canceled Trump's Remain in Mexico border policy. You canceled Trump's border wall with the southern border of the United States and Mexico. You canceled Donald Trump's authorization of the Keystone Pipeline. You also canceled many initiatives intended to bring jobs and factories back to America. In your view, as you stated as a candidate, China is not our enemy. And many of the companies that were bringing jobs back to America started moving those jobs back to Asia because they saw the writing on the wall, and Joe Biden was not going to support them bringing factories back to America.
Represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
You notice he doesn't specifically say what this is. Let's go and look at what Biden considers good protests and bad protests. All right, so here's what Biden means about MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump extremism. When Republicans protest and occupy government buildings, that's bad. When Democrats protest and occupy government buildings, such as here in 2011 at the Wisconsin State Rotunda, protesting Republican Governor Scott Walker, that's a good protest. You see the difference here? Bad protest, good protest in the Biden mind.
Failure to acknowledge when elections were won or lost.
Sanders, you gotta help me. I don't know what to do. I can't make decisions. I'm a president.